Good morning, Mantas. It is the week of the 5th and 7th for our class, and let's talk a little bit about what we're doing. Right now, this is what you obviously, when you go into Google Classroom, what you see with attendance being the first thing you do, the scope, objective, and essential question, what we're covering, and today's lesson is hierarchy in ancient Egypt. So let's break this down. You've seen this before, and I know a lot of you have. Simple thing. When you go into Google Classroom, all you do is you click on this form, and you do what it tells you to do. And that will create an email and launch this report that lets me know that you were in class. And it should be on time. You notice I've kicked it out a little bit toward 10 a.m., which is giving you a little bit more grace to get in there. And there's also kids who are doing some of the work later in the day for one reason or another. But we just want you here. We want you to keep motivating and keep moving through class so that you'll be ready for 7th grade, because it's going to happen before we know it. The scope, objective, and essential question. I'm just looking at period 1 here. So it's 29 assigned, and no one's turned it in yet because it's going to drop at 9. That's a big deal. Open the 2 slides in the attached deck. Read the first slide carefully. Think about other social structures and hierarchies that you encounter in your own life. Next, complete the assignment and be sure to use a different color for your responses. So, the Social Structures Unit introduces students to the roles of people within societies and how those roles impacted their daily lives. Students will analyze social structures from various ancient civilizations to determine the effect social class has on a person's political and economic power. They will also determine how the hierarchies found within an ancient societies represented the beliefs and values of people within each civilization. Now, in terms of Wake County, this is like 6.C.1.3, and the objective is to summarize systems of social structures within various civilizations and societies over time. And we're going to answer the essential question, how did a civilization's social hierarchy determine the rights and responsibilities of its people? Here's our assignment. Okay, so you're going to complete the hierarchy in ancient Egypt questions. Read the article and type your answers. You do not have to write your answers in complete sentences, but make sure you fully answer the questions. Please type your answers in a different color so they stand out. And do not forget to hit the turn in button in Google Classroom. All right, so that's the scope. Now, here's the actual lesson. Now remember, a pyramid is a shape in geometry, a monumental structure built by ancient Egyptians, a way of describing a social structure. So we're going to read through carefully your copy of the hierarchy in ancient Egypt and answer the questions at the end of the document. Use context clues to define the 4 bold words. You're going to use a dictionary to define both underlined words, and you're going to list the 10 people or groups in the pyramid and write a short description of their job. Here we go. Now, let me show it to you. Scrolling down. All right. Also, many of you have noticed this. We have now a rubric that's built in. Let me see if we can move this over. Here we go. Now, it's either not turned in where the assignment was not submitted. The assignment needs to be completed and submitted as soon as possible. It requires some review, and the assignment is incomplete or shows partial understanding of the relevant topics. The assignment needs to be reviewed and corrected before submission, and the R there is resubmitted, and then meets expectations. The assignment displays an understanding of the relevant topics. Some small errors may be found, but no additional instructions are necessary. That is sort of the expectation for work. Let me close this here. All right, so here's the document you're looking at. And we will scroll over again ever so slightly. All right, so you're reading the article and type your answers. You don't have to write your answers in complete sentences. Make sure you fully answer the questions. Please type your answers in a different color so they stand out. So this should be your copy. If you're in the Google Drive, in your Google Classroom, this should come up as your own copy. So you can type in it anytime you want, anything you want. And there's 5 bold words. Some I had a blank there because we changed this. So You're going to use context clues to define the 5 bold words. You're going to use a dictionary to define both underlined words. And you're going to list all the 10 people or groups on the pyramid and write a short description of their job. And that is it. This is all the reading you're doing. Okay, so let's do the reading. Egyptian society was structured like a pyramid. At the top were the gods, such as Ra, Osiris, and Isis. Egyptians believed that the gods controlled the universe. Therefore, it was important to keep them happy. They could make the Nile overflow, cause famine, or even bring death. The pharaoh. The Egyptians also believed pharaohs were gods in human form. They had an absolute power over their subjects. Oops, sorry about that. After pharaohs died, huge stone pyramids were built as their tombs. Pharaohs were buried in chambers within the pyramids. A government ruled by a royal leader, such as a pharaoh or king, is called a monarchy. Because the people of Egypt believed that the pharaohs were gods, they entrusted them with many responsibilities. Protection was at the top of the list. The pharaohs directed the army in case of a foreign threat. All laws were made by the pharaoh. Each farmer paid taxes in the form of grain, which was stored in the pharaoh's warehouses. The grain was used to feed the people in the event of a famine. Here's the chain of command. No single person could manage all these duties without assistance. The pharaoh appointed a chief minister called a vizier as a supervisor. The vizier ensured that taxes were collected. Working with the vizier were scribes who kept government records. Scribes mastered a rare skill in ancient Egypt. They could read and write. Noble aims. Right below the pharaoh in status were powerful nobles and priests. Only nobles could hold government posts. In these positions, they profited from tributes paid to the pharaoh. Priests were responsible for pleasing the gods. Religion was very important in ancient Egyptian culture, and each town had its own deity, a god or goddess. Initially, these deities were animals. Later, they took on human appearances and behaviors. Seated, here is Thoth, the god of learning and wisdom, carrying a scepter, symbolizing magical power. Nobles enjoyed great status and also became wealthy from donations to the gods. All Egyptians, from pharaohs to farmers, gave gifts to the gods. Soldiers fought in wars and helped keep order. During long periods of peace, soldiers also supervised the peasants, farmers, and slaves who were involved in building pyramids and palaces. The middle class. Artisans were skilled workers, such as craftspeople. They made up a part of the middle class. Craftspeople made jewelry, pottery, papyrus, and tools. Naturally, people were needed to buy goods from artisans. These were the merchants who sold these goods to the public. They made up the other half of the middle class. The bottom of the heap. The bottom of the social structure were farmers and slaves. Farmers tended the fields, raised animals, kept canals and reservoirs in good order, worked in the stone quarries, and built the royal monuments. Farmers paid taxes that could be as much as 60% of their yearly harvest. Slavery became the fate of those captured as prisoners of war. In addition, being forced to work on building projects, slaves worked any job the pharaoh or nobles needed completed. Social mobility was possible. Now, it was not impossible. A number of peasants and farmers moved up the economic ladder. Farmers saved money to send their sons to village schools to learn trades. These schools were run by priests or by artisans. Boys who learned to read and write could become scribes, then go on to gain employment in the government. It was possible for a boy born on a farm to work his way up into the higher ranks of government. And there you go. Good luck.